Live show number 493. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are in the month of change. It is January 17th. And as the world goes through its winter cycle in a variety of places, the U.S. being included, we're based in Southwest Florida, so we'll always have our domestic reference to the United States, obviously. But we are present in 209 countries with our TV channel, the Hospitality Channel, Hospitality Marketing Channel, to be more specific, which you can find on your TVs, Roku, Google, Amazon TV, Apple TV, all the smart TVs. Just look for Hospitality Channel. Boom, we're there. The live show's on the free side of that. So forth and so on. We're also simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. We go into a variety of channels. We have a variety of wonderful relationships with associations and with large corporate entities that broadcast our content on that. We also have our radio station, the Hospitality Radio Station, Hospitality Marketing Radio Station. Keep just tossing that marketing off today, which is broadcasted in 39 countries. We do retranslate our show in 11 languages. The live show, the podcast, we also translate. But on the radio station, it's all English. We have a variety of podcasts from industry experts that run podcasts for different content and so forth. Very much like a radio station. If you'd like to check it out, hospitalityradio.com. All that being said, topic today. I don't know if this is a long conversation or short conversation, but I think it's a necessary conversation. And that is modalities of marketing. We're at a time now that we've dusted off the new budgets. We're in the usages of the new budgets. We have a new year. We're in a transitional year by far, and I say that domestically in the United States and several countries abroad. They went through their political shifts and moves as the pendulum swings. And for the U.S., we're entering an interesting phase. Conservative phase, I guess, whatever way you want to think of it, that sense. But it is the harbinger of change. That change is going to reflect in our business, people's financial ability to travel, people's financial ability to enjoy their travel, the choices of travel, so forth and so on. It's going to change our demographics and dynamics. Business models that we have been running with for the past couple of years for a variety of whatever motivated the transitions of travel are shifting yet again. We know that we've gone through several cycles of marketing in the sense of revenge travel and post-pandemic lockdown travel and financial changes of travel, cost of living travel channels, a spectrum of travel channels changes. Our economy went to a K economy. Those who have money continue to travel as if they have always done. People without that as much money, of course, have choices of retail versus travel. We went through the holiday travel. And here we are, which brings us to our topic. Perspective versus prospective marketing. We built our budgets starting in August of last year through probably October, before final approval of whatever we created, under the prognostication of what we thought this year would bring. None of us during that entire cycle knew how the political climate in the United States was going to transition into. We all had our hopes, whatever side we're referring to. And now there's the reality of this. In a few short days, 3 short days, of course, comes the reality in very vivid form. So we are now faced with things that we had to make conditionals. It was almost as if last year we had to make 2 possibilities of what our budget might reflect. The budget under one austerity of economy and the budget under another austerity economy. A lot of people I talked to and a lot of people that I was working with on their budgets looked at the progressive growth of the economy in general. Sans politics. We have a growth economy, inflation being tempered, recession being tempered, job growth being well. But there was still, unfortunately, through the greed of businesses, not a lot of the transition of the values of the positive of the economy was being made down to the consumer. It was benefiting the companies. Their margins for cost went down, so they were wanting to burgeon their profits. And they didn't reduce their prices to the consumers, and from that, reduce their profits. They were grabbing what they could for whatever justification of that, whether it's compensation for the loss of profits from the last year previous, or whether it was just pure greed of wanting more profits, more of that. All said and done, The economy from a user perspective didn't dramatically improve. The cost of living did not dramatically improve. Matter of fact, it stayed at about the same, and other things continued to escalate. Very few things of merit actually reduced in value. Why am I saying all this? Perspective. The idea that people, when we're the future guests or repeat guests of our relationships that we're burgeoning with our marketing, have a reality to their life as to how they see our value proposition and our product, and even the interest in us. We know that travel is one of the more universal uh, leisure things that people enjoy doing. We're in the wonderful world of hospitality, and for that reason, um, we get the benefit of being a continuity for people's lives. So we ride the ride regardless. People are traveling because they can, through ups and downs of economies. But we should consider the fact that now, with a much clearer perspective of what 2025 is starting as, not what it's going to become, but what it's starting as, we should reevaluate what we based our marketing directions budgetarily. Saving a word, budgetarily. I made it up if it isn't. I'm famous for that, actually. Um, or we need to change how we are doing our processes of marketing. A lot of this has to do with our data usage and so forth. But let's kind of go through the differences between perspective versus prospective. I'm going to read verbatim the definitions so that you understand. They sound similar. They are in context, but not in definition. Perspective is used to further classify content using cross-category grouping. Perspectives often answer the question, who is interested in? Prospective, prospecting, prospective marketing, is the process of identifying and engaging with people who have shown interest in a product or service but haven't yet made a purchase. Prospective customers are also known as potential clients or potential customers. A potential meter. So, in process, there is a what before there's a who. Perspective is the driving of direction of what we think is the categories, demographics, behavioral psychographics, geographies, whatever, of who we think is going to be interested in coming and staying at our hotels or dining at our restaurants or going to our golf courses or going to our spas. Prospective is once that touch has been made or some engagement has been created, then it's for us to define the category of their interest to convert them into a customer or a guest. We based a lot of 2025 on what we thought what 2025 would be. And I'm sorry, but very few people with certainty by far knew we would be here where we are right now. And I say this particularly into the United States. A lot of people on the side that won were willing it to be that way. And the people on the other side that lost were willing it to be the other way. And depending upon how you were looking at your prognostication of business, that had a very strong influence on what you were trying to decide as budgets for the marketing that you would have to do. We're only going to keep our conversation to the marketing perspective. Other components of that have a whole nother value proposition. But from the marketing perspective, we had to kind of play middle ground and base it more on metrics of data and metrics of economy than we did about political sentiment and changing in policies and so forth that would influence potentially the functionality. Now, in the United States, there could be a very positive reaction to the change of the government. A lot of people feel with optimism and so forth, based on the pollings and so forth, that our economy is at the base of an upturn because of policy changes that are going to be happening. We've also listened to the same prognosticators talk about the impact of these purported policies, because they haven't been enacted yet, and the negative impact that can happen to people, especially in the short term. And I say short term being spring break and the first cycle of first quarter, early second quarter shoulder. They could have a very resounding impact on what that looks like for us. What we need now is to not second guess what we think is going to happen, but instead try to find data in our own engagements with our guests as to what they're thinking about the sentiment of the mass, the collective mind. That's a nice thing to say, right? What's the reality of this? The reality of this is that you look at your traffic data. You see if there's any year-over-year comparative variations, or where they're coming from different than where they had come from before. One of the big ones to truly look for is an indicator of is plus 30-day, plus 60-day booking interest. We have, of course, with our new, not so new anymore, it's into our third year, GA4, the ability to look at the dates that were being pursued or interested in. What were they looking at? How far out were they looking at it for? What particular dates of interest? And see how that variance compares to same time last year, variance of what the dates of interest are. Some interesting things. For some of the locations that I work with, there is a definitive cliff that people aren't really looking past a certain date. Now, some of that comes from the idea that summer is yet to be unknown, and the shoulder season of summer yet to be unknown. Because of Easter where it lands, it's a different quarterly season, obviously, for those that keep Easter is a marker for all of us. As to what the anticipation of what summer costs are going to be, or what summer interest is going to be. So for some of my clients, and businesses I talk to on the Hospitality Marketing Club and so forth, there's a definitive precipice that people aren't looking past spring or at past Easter for the most part. Then I have other markets that are very much bullish on the idea of, is there any good deals for summer? And that there's a lot of plus 120s out there, 120 days for those I'm just abbreviating for, of interest that people are looking and beginning to poke at what's happening with the rates that we're offering for the summertime engagement for that. So there's no clear right answer to this, but the idea of it is that you should be looking at these variances. These variances create the perspective, PER, okay, of defining and refining. I'm going to use similes all day, of who your marketing should be tailored for. Now, there's a huge fall down, massive fall down in the initiative of marketing and campaign creation. And where do you send it? A lot of places do this very staggered approach of build the campaigns and they will come, drive them to the front door website. Useless and squandered traffic is what I say, because you've piqued their interest on campaign segmentation, summer offers, spring offers, whatever, but you haven't driven them to anything that's supportive of that contextually on your website. Second option that I see a lot of, they don't go to the main website, which is their default. They send them to the booking engine with that, whatever they're talking about. Sometimes the booking just generically, all your current rates. There's nothing special about your booking. You're just going to your booking engine and your AAAs and your ARPs and your whatever length of stays, offers, whatever, prepays, everything are there. Nothing unique. Again, another fail, because you've driven them to a place that's not unique to what you drove them there for. And that's as far as a lot of agencies go. They don't really do what is needed for this. And I'm going to break it down as to that side answer first, but also a predication to all of that too. So first, let me break down and direct what I just said was wrong, what you should do right. If you're wanting to speak in context as to an area of time that you think is worthy of a campaign to push it interest towards, build the content on your website related to it. Summer events and activities, point it to a blog post you have running your blog, put it to a content page you have, put it to a historical event or category page that you have on your website, or information that's related to the intended interest of it that is related to the campaign you built it for. Late spring, spring break, early summer, whatever it is, the campaigns go to a place that has content. That content should be in and built as fast as possible for the next two reasons. Next reason is organic authority, building your authority that you have content related to those things so that Google places you up more natively related to what you're talking about for your destination or events or reasons to travel at that time of year for all your non-branded campaign interests. And the second is because you have a place organically on your site that the thing you should do before all of this that you should be doing now is cultivating your social media content engagement. Social media predicates paid campaigns. It is a litmus test as to where you should dedicate campaign interest, because the engagement of your social media campaigns and the engagement of your social media paid campaigns, because of that, is the catalyst of definition of what you do for your paid campaigns in general. Case in point, right now, if you're talking about snowy destinations or skiing and so forth, yes, you may have late time pickup, less than 14 days or 21 days out. But likelihood that's based on one, weather shifts where you get the good benefit of better weather. Two, availability of transportation to get to you that doesn't require an over amount of cost in relationship to the cost of being with you. Ski lift, local food, so forth and so on. It's a hard nut to crack. Interest in wintertime adventures right now happened back starting in September. What you should have been doing now already post holiday, because nobody thinks about things past the holiday that's in front of them. What you should be thinking about and posting now and putting content on is spring break discoveries, spring break events, spring break why, what to do, where to do it at, why it's important to you be in the middle of that conversation, social content. From it, you should cherry pick the things historically that had been successful campaigns that people had rallied interest around and developed conversions for you on, okay, that you build paid campaigns for, to solicit engagement, and you see how that engagement responds, how well it works, what traffic is being connected to it. It's not measured under um, the cost value relationship. It's about traffic value. Social is not a strong direct channel. It's a contributory channel to that, but its real value is an augmentation, an amplification of all the other campaigns you're driving. ROI. For some reason, I couldn't figure the acronym. God knows why I wouldn't think of that. A just creeping in. So, social is not based, and social paid campaigns isn't based on the ROI equation as a litmus test of deciding and showing which engagements may be the most fertile to build paid campaigns on, to drive that eventual conversion interest. Okay, they help in the attribution string of the whole process. Then your paid campaigns not only have a momentum of talking about what's of interest, both historically and data driven, because you see the engagement from your social paid campaigns and social organic campaigns, but you also have been seeding your organic content on your website related to all of this that social was talking about. Go find out more information. We have a guide, we have a directory, we have a blog, we have whatever it is that's in your social feed about this stuff, okay, that you also use in your paid social stuff, that's been cultivating good organic authentication, that now is the reference link necessary for your paid campaigns. Your paid campaigns, especially out of a long booking window where you're not into the prime booking conversion window yet, drives to content that resupports the idea. This goes to device engagement as well. This is where you see a lot of your mobile engagement. A lot of people are looking to define, to go through the discovery, education, conversion process, the simple 3-step funnel that is easier to point to because people relate to it more these days. You've gone through the discovery portion with social. You're now into the paid campaigns of directing them to the educational. You're still not hard hitting them. It's not that you're not leaving a book now button available on the content, or find out more, or see what our offers are, or whatever software you want to put it in. But the concept of the engagement at this point is informational and supportive and helpful. You're there. This is where the mobile traffic goes in. So many people try to lean into their mobile traffic paid campaigns because they see all this traffic happening in mobile, but it bleeds money because the conversion value is so fractional compared to desktop. Think of most people's engagement, that they will take their mobile because of the convenience of its interactability. You're sitting in your chair or whatever like this, you're scrolling through, you're poking things, you're falling down rabbit holes and so forth. That's what you have on mobile for a lot of this, the discovery process. You save a bookmark, or you send yourself a link, or you put it into your forever tabs that you keep in the background, whatever, to go back and look at. That's where they come to your pages of content on your site that is supportive of what your ad was referring to. Things to do in spring, mountain biking down a hill, or beachside this, or whatever it is. And they get to go look and see. And if it's of enough interest, then they'll find whatever their comfort way is retaining that data, bookmarking, whatever, as I just said, until they get it home and they have a little bit bigger screen, laptop most probably, still, because they're a desktop, where they'll take the time to kind of blow up the screen a little bit, easy to read, poke around, clip around, instead of doing the scroll because pages are so long in mobile compared to a wider desktop format. And they'll go through more of an education process to see if the validity of their interest is still well founded. This is where your content on your website is so profound because you brought them there. If it's doing its job really well and they see that the early offers that you're talking about or the value that you're telling that you're billing for, and they see that and maybe they do their research at that time or not, they might book it just to have it as they realize, okay, I've made my decision, I'm going to go down there, this looks really good and I like the information, let me book something to hold it. And then the next phase will go through comparative pricing to make sure that I have the best place or whether I really like this. And that is where you get into the prospective marketing. Because now, once they've touched with you, you've defined them, they've yet to make a purchase. But now you have to cultivate the engagement. Because now they have touched you and engaged with you, you create audiences that said that they came through and went to this page. Let's take campaigns. Let's take more content. Let's diversify the channels of discovery for them because we now have a referencing of custom audiences and so forth that say, here's the next step of the conversation. Don't send them the same stuff that got them there. That is another bane of what agencies do. They just keep regurgitating the same ad campaigns for the same next steps. And all that does is it blunts your quality of message. You need to have a progressive content discussion. First engagement content, second engagement content, third engagement content. And at some point, the frequency does matter and the time duration that you have matters. Okay. You give up trying to push stuff in front of them because you're really just pissing them off at this point. And I say that when you know what I'm saying, that once you touch a website, you see the remarketing everywhere. It drives you nuts and it gets you mad because now, no matter where you go on whatever website for whatever thing, you're just being hounded by the same message you've already read over and over and over. There's not even a progression of messages, no even changing of it. It's just the same damn ad you saw the first time. You're constantly seeing everywhere else. And that just irritates people. That is bad campaign strategy. It's one thing to have display ads. It's one thing to be prevalent like that, but moderate your frequency depending upon the duration of time. Now, how does all this work? Let's take the custom audience discussion. So they've touched you. You've created an audience that if they touched you on this page, that they go into this category, people that went to this page. That creates a custom audience. Knowing that and knowing the campaigns that drove them to that, because you have that information as well, your next message is a continuance of the first message. I told you about this. Now I'm going to tell you more about that and this much more. That's the second messaging. Okay. Now, also in your custom audiences should be the definition of what they were looking at. If it's just touching the page, that's one thing. You know the page is about an event that's 90 days or 120 days out. So you have a time frame, and this is where you have historical data. For that event that you decided was worthy of content that you developed for them, you know that the booking window historically for that had been 21 days out. So you know that you have up until 21 days prior to the event to cultivate a frequency pattern that isn't invasive, is supportive, and it's remindful of why you should be under consideration for their purchase. That's how you stage your frequency pattern. If the event was only 2 weeks out, you only have 2 weeks to do it. So you have a certain number you can only get in 2 weeks compared to a certain number that you can get in over 120 days. See the difference? Compression of time, okay? And also sense of urgency of the message. You have 2.5 months or 2.25 months to cultivate more and more engagement with them. And as they engage with you from this prospective marketing, each level creates a new engagement value of them and a new message or an alternate channel for them to be presented with your content. So picture the first engagement got them connected to you, which allowed you to go and create a targeting towards them. So it went from perspective, okay, looking at putting out things that would be of merit, changed it to a prospecting, which is now that they've touched me, I can now begin to cultivate the relationship with them. And through the stages of the cultivation, there are specific campaign layers that offer not only different messaging, but also perhaps progressive growth of content on your website. and also progressive growth on social, because you can direct them to many things. And you're going to want to improve the conditions of communication. Maybe it's the solicitation of giving them a guide with it for the token of an email. Maybe it's going to another link that is helpful, and that causation of them doing that really refines them as being a probable candidate of being more than just passively interested, but definitely interested. This is the perspective program. Okay, perspective is cultivating where you're going to go. Prospective is once you've identified it, how are you engaging them? So, perspective, what are we going to do? Prospective, what are we going to do once we get it? That's the real variation between perspective and prospective marketing, is those two steps. So, in this perspective of going progressively through the engagement and the redefining of the custom audiences, some of that maybe touched you once, and you've tried other mediums, you tried display ads, you've tried remarketing and so forth, and they don't have any more reconnectivity to you, then the frequency should be slowed to stop. One last ditch, so you clear your zombie list, which is just going back and saying, just to be absolutely certain that we didn't win that conversation of discovery that you initially had us involved with. We're offering this amazing super duper thing, whatever. And if they still were crickets, then you just realize that they didn't choose you. Leave it alone. Not that you lose them over, next year might be a different year. But for now, leave them alone. Don't try to increase frequency and saturate them with additional. That's just irritating, because they did make another decision. You weren't it. And for that reason, okay, you should leave them alone. Now, I'll give one caveat to this, and that is sometimes you lose the potential guest, but as they get closer to the time where they've either booked with somebody else or will be planning on booking, and you lost that being on the short list, things can happen in your market that will allow you to dig up the idea that maybe we should go try to touch them again, because maybe whatever got dug up in the market is negative for my competitors or whatever like that, which means that those people might want to think about making a change. And I want to remind them that they were originally interested in us at the very beginning. Okay. Not knowing the context of what that event would be, but I'll give you an example of one similar to what happened with Park City and the ski patrols, where they went on strike, and also in Vail. I have clients that work in the snow market, and they compete with those two places and so forth. Different demographic strata, incomes, and so forth. But when all that happened, we had lost bookings for us versus them for certain segments of time. And then it looked like, that happened. So let's dig out the audiences of places that were incompatible with those groups, and with the same feeder markets that we share with the Park City people and the Val people and so forth, same demographic tiers that we had. Those categories of stuff, we have three things to choose and go directly against them, saying, hey, we're open and fine, in contrast to them not. Two, we have great weather and snow, and this is an extra thing to consider if you're looking at other places to go to. And three, just amplify who we are for what we are, not referring to the things that they're lacking in the same markets that they get feeder from business from, that we also get feeder business from. Amplify our markets to amplify our budgets to the marketing we already have. So we have those three options to go to. That's when I would say there's an exception to what I just said about calling it a day and letting it run, is that if the change in market demand happens, that basically you're taking advantage of and saying, well, that happened, so now I might be under reconsideration compared to I had lost it before. So prospective marketing is always being clear on the opportunities that are present. You know your window. You know what you're progressively communicating with people. First engagement created the ability to identify them from a perspective strategy of who to target to a prospective. Now that I have some semblance of engagement interest, we went from anybody to somebody. Now let me cultivate the relationship with progressive conversations that start, which got the interest, cultivate because they continue to connect with us, define because they're now looking more specific as to exactly what it is they want and do and everything else like this, to conversion. Discovery, education, conversion, basically. So that is the contrast between perspective versus prospective marketing. It's something to, again, as I mentioned at the start of the show, to consider how we do what we do because of so much being in the question box of what happens next for all of us, how things are going to change as a society, how things are going to change economically, how things are going to change for interest levels, capabilities, and so forth, economies, and so forth. So, all that being in mind, you have to know what to go back to. You just can't sit on what you built last August and say, we had a plan, because that plan could be tone deaf as to what it would be better for now with an update as to the realities that you're facing now compared to it's a tome, it's written in stone, it came down from the top of the mountain, we can't change what we did. If the budget is wrong, the budget needs to be changed. And if you're like, well, that's crazy because it took us 2 months, 3 months to actually get to the approval process, now we're going back and saying we got to change it again. Remember, everybody in that chain does not want to be the one holding the bag of poop if the revenues go down. Ownership wants you to deliver. Management wants to satisfy ownership's commitment, what they said for deliverability. And operations and the properties want to make sure that they are vested in what they're producing and is realistic in the expectations rather than being blamed for the lack of revenue. They should be the one raising the flag about this numbers aren't working. These strategies aren't as good as they should be. And management team, if they hadn't already thought of that, realize that they should be supportive of that and recultivate what it means to change the budget, change the methodology of your prospective and perspective marketing. So with that, thank you for the privilege of your time. For everyone watching us globally, again, always appreciate everyone, no matter what the time zone, catching us in the 209 countries that we broadcast in. Again, we have our app. You can always go to Hospitality Channel as an app on Apple iOS or Google Play. Just look for it, download it. The show is always free to it. There is a paid gateway to some really cool content about the hospitality industry that's on the other side. You can join our Hospitality Marketing Club if you're a hospitality marketing professional. Go to hospitalitymarketing.club, put your email in, and send your quiz. We validate that you are an active hospitality marketer, and you join our peer level group where you get to ask a lot of fun questions and share a lot of good answers, hopefully, with a lot of people that do the same thing you do every day. We also, again, have our hospitalityradio.com, our show. If you want to see our actual TV channel online, it's talktravel.tv is the website for our show, our TV channel, sorry. As for us as broadcasting, we have the I Love Lucy, what I like to call it, website, which is hospitalitychannel.tv. That has all of our podcasts, all of our TV shows by data broadcast, co-hosts, topics, searchable. It's just everything but everything of our shows. Now, our podcast I keep referring to is our audio podcast, a little briefer than this and more tool-driven, specific solution tool-driven. We answer questions that we get posed from. If you ever want to ask a question, you can send me an email at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com or you can go to hdm.news/talkback, and there's an audio component to that where you just ask your question, tell me permissions to either use your name, not use your name, or just refer to the topic that you were talking about. So lots of ways to get a hold of me. Answer each and every one of them that I get through. As a reminder for our APAC friends, we do rebroadcast this show at 11:30 Wednesday mornings, Sydney, Australian time. And for our EU and Mideast friends, we rebroadcast the show 11:30 a.m. Wednesday mornings, London time. So, and then our multilingual captioning goes out for this show over the weekend. So the 11 languages that we broadcast this into, subtitled down below. They're all based on the audience sizes we get from the different countries that use those languages. A lot of Filipino, which is great, and Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, obviously French, German, lots of languages. Anyways, Portuguese actually too. Just add that one in there. So with that, again, Lauren Gray, appreciate your time, the privilege of your time actually, and look forward to talking to you all next week.